Okay, so we've talked about the sacrum. Now we're going to start in on the pelvic half. Now there are two pelvic halves. This is a pelvic half alone, outside the ring of the pelvis. So remember, I keep saying there are three bones forming the bony ring of the pelvis, which is right here. And this you'll see a replica of the left pelvic half. Okay, so I find this bone is much harder to get a grasp on intellectually and much easier to get a grasp on with my hands. So I encourage you to go through a process of touch and feel on your own time very often to sort of build the image of where and how this bone lies in the body. So what we're going to do to start touching that bone, we're actually going to explore it in pieces. So if I put my pelvis in front of my pelvis, you can see that there are these two ridges at the top of my pelvic halves, right? And I can touch those quite easily, actually. So go ahead and do that and take your thumbs and try to feel back along how far back down that edge can you feel? And then feel to the front, and you'll find there's generally a sort of hook corner shape at the front that has its Latin anatomical name called the ASIS, the anterior, the forward superior high. So the forward and high iliac spine. Ilium refers to this bone, which molded in the pelvic half and in the spine. So one thing I hope you all start to gather is the anatomical names are not actually as scary as they at first seem. There's generally a reason they all exist. So the ASIS is that front corner, and I'm feeling with my thumb back along down, and what you'll see is this drops all the way down to what we were talking about before, the SI joint, where the sacrum will connect to the pelvic half. So take some time and feel that. See if you can find the bumps in the back. They'll be rocking down, you'll be going vertically down, and you'll rise up to the front bones. And then when you feel like you've found the bumps on the back, which would be the PSIS, the posterior superior iliac spine, you can basically grip the entire pelvic half, the top of it, and you can start rocking your pelvis like we did with the sacrum, and you can begin to feel, especially when I take one knee forward and one knee back, this is where it's quite easy for me, or also if I lift one of my sit bones or my butt cheeks, if I lift one, I can also feel that these bones actually can move independently of one another. So there are times if I rock forward, if I roll my pelvis forward, those bones are both tipping forward, and I could have the image, sort of the kinesthetic image, that they were one bone. However, when I start moving my legs independently, when I start walking, when I start running, even when I start sitting and standing and bending, we'll look at that in more detail later, but really when I'm moving one leg opposite the other, I can feel these bones actually moving in different directions. So go ahead and get a feel for the pelvic half as you're moving the pelvis. You'll feel it starting to rock. And once you feel like you have a good sense of at least the top of it, you can mimic sort of the shape of the top of the bone. Right? If I rest my hands right on the top of the bone, basically I was grabbing on top, now I'm resting them on the sides, I can pretend that these are the pelvic halves. And this can actually aid me in connecting my sort of visual imagery with my kinesthetic felt sense and beginning to build better feeling and more deeper and intricate movement into my body. So see how many different ways can you move your pelvic halves, right? Could I rotate one pelvic half opposite the other while the other is more stable? Could I swing them to the sides? Could I lift them up and down? Could I roll and slide them like a skier, J-hooking, right, on a stop? Right, so I have a lot of things I can play with, and once again I can do that with my hands touching the bones. I can do that with my hands in front, mimicking the bones in my mind, or I can just do it all through my felt sense and my imagination. Okay, so those are the tops of the pelvic halves. If you enjoyed this video, sign up for the InBody Space newsletter and share the link with a friend. You can also find original content on Facebook and Instagram.